hymn, It Is Well With My Soul, number 70.
Jesus.
148.
Yeah, 180.
180. Anybody else? Okay,
Gentle
let's-
Shepherd.
okay. Do you know what number that is by chance?
240.
Okay, it's 240. Gentle Shepherd, come and lead us, for we need you to help us find our way. Gentle Shepherd, come and lead us, for we need your strength from day to day. There's no other we can turn to who can help us face another day. Gentle Shepherd, come and lead us, for we need you to help us find our way. Thank you for your service.
Thankful for the gentle shepherd tonight.
Amen.
You know, the Bible talks about the Lord being our shepherd, and the shepherd always protects his sheep. Another thing about sheep is they always know their shepherd's voice. And so as we go to prayer tonight, we should listen for his voice and raise our voices in prayer to the Lord and take our needs to him. I want to ask Phil to lead us tonight, if you will, Phil. We pray. Remember the needs that were mentioned this morning. Remember the needs that are listed in the bulletin. Does anyone else have any prayer requests you'd like to share tonight? you stand with us tonight? Phil, would you lead us in prayer?
Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. We thank you again, Father, for this day. We thank you, Father, for what you mean to us each and every day of our lives. We thank you and we praise you for the service we had this morning, for your servant to continue to come and fill the gap, to help this church and Pastor Paul. Father, we speak of Pastor Paul's health. We cast out the cancer in his body. We thank you, we believe you, Father, for total and complete restoration of his body. Whatever your end results are, Father, is for you to know and us to believe in grace that what you will perform is the right thing for him. And we thank you, Father, for his sons continue to help him. We praise you for that. We thank you, Father, for the uplifted hand for those, Father, unspoken requests. We thank you again for all problems in the church as far as sickness, health, and other things, anything we need, Father. We ask, Father, that you'll put a hunger and a thirst into each and every person in this church to rise up and fulfill their obligation in this church, regardless of what it is. And be prompt in doing it. We'll thank you, we'll lead you for it, Father. In the precious name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Good to see you. We're going to put our usher right now and take up the evening offering, so appreciate it. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. Pray. Father, thank you again for this place. Thank you, Lord, for so many who have gone before us, who have offered up prayers and the financial means to make this place possible, and that we can enjoy it today, and that can be a place of worship, a lighthouse in this community. We pray, Lord, that you would bless this offering, that it would go forth, Lord, to continue this ministry and to take the word, Lord, of salvation to this community. We pray that you would bless this offering. Bless the gift and the giver. In Jesus' name, amen.
Kind of singing this song tonight with Nick Blackfoot in mind. This is one of his favorite songs, and they're not here this evening, but has a tremendous message. Leave it there.
Jesus
you, Sherry and Dick, for that song. There's a great message in that song. How many times do you go and feel like you left your problem with the Lord, and boy, if you don't just turn around in a few days and pick it right back up again.
Amen.
Say, well, maybe I better take this over again and deal with it again. But you know, it's a great message in that song that we have issues, we have challenges, we all do. You know, bring it to the altar, get on your knees, take it to the foot of the cross, and just leave it there. He'll take care of it. And then, the Bible says we are more than conquerors through Christ, right?
Amen.
That's when we win, when we just turn it over to Him, right? I'd like to wait on you this evening. I like to sometimes take a few minutes and give you an opportunity to share. If you have something on your heart you would like to share tonight, and we will wait on you for just a few minutes before Sean comes up and give you an opportunity to share if you have anything on your heart.
I just want to thank the Lord for watching over Mike and I. He was going to the credit union the other day, and he decided to wait. He was going to go early in the morning when it opened, and he decided to wait and do it after he got off work. And if he had went, he would have been in with a robbery. And to me, it was just the Lord saying, you don't have time, you need to go take care of, here you're supposed to be at work at 9 o'clock, just do that, you can do it on the, on the way back. But the credit union had been robbed at 9 o'clock in the morning, and that's where he was headed, and he didn't.
Well, first of all, Mike, you chickened out, right? You're
That's
going to
right.
be part of that, right?
That's exactly right.
You're going to be part of the crowd that got cold feet. Well, you just never know. We just never know until we look back and say, wow, the Lord may have had His hand in that, protecting you. So I'm thankful we drove over 2,000 miles on our vacation and didn't have a bit of trouble, felt safe, and just felt like the Lord, was traveling with us, keep us safe. We saw a lot of, and Sherry and Dick can tell you, we saw a lot of insane driving. I mean, it was the things that people do on the interstate, on motorcycles and cars. I saw something that, and I think we had all seen something that I've never seen before, and I've driven, my whole career has been about traveling and driving. I couldn't tell you how many tens of thousands of miles I've driven. I've never seen this before. But a car came up right behind another car. That's not unusual. Literally within inches of his back bumper. And came over and literally, and Sherry called it threading the needle, went literally between two cars on the interstate. I mean, just went right between both of them. One was in this lane, one was this lane, and you got the line here, and he went up that line and went up right between those two. There couldn't have been inches between the cars on both sides. And and motorcycles, people zigging and zagging out on motorcycles, no helmets, and wow, we just, at any moment, there could have been a really real tragedy. And thank the Lord, we had safe travel. I thank the Lord for that. Anyone else?
I'm grateful that you, Nancy, Sherry, and Dick are back. Really have missed you. Prayed a lot for you, for your safe travel. We missed you. I don't think I speak from just myself. I think we all missed you folks. So glad to have you back. Appreciate it. Good to be missed.
Erin had a lot of problems in her family and her husband's family this last week, but all of it has turned around for the better. Erin's better, and Andrew is better, and Bill lost his grandfather in a fire because of a fire. They lost their home last week, and they lost him. But she just seems like she's got all her faith in the Lord. He was a ordained minister too of the Church of God, and it's just comforting to know where he is, and how he lives.
The Bible calls it the blessed hope. Heaven. Anyone else? Okay, we'll turn the remainder of the service over to Sean. You pray for Sean and share with us tonight, and we'll turn it over to him.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you all for coming to church tonight. I know it's been a rainy and nasty day out, and I don't know about you, but generally when it's a rainy day, I just want to stay home and not go anywhere. So I thank you all for coming tonight and being in God's house. I think there are three different phases in Jesus' life. There was his birth, which we talked about a few weeks ago, his miracles and his ministry, and his death and resurrection, which is still to come. This week, I wanted to talk to you about his miracles and the works he did while on earth. I'm going to talk to you about the miracles he performed when he was on this earth before his arrest, trial, beating, and crucifixion. Tonight, there are a few different ones that I'm going to speak about that he performed. First, we will look at the first miracle that Jesus performed, which was turning water into wine. That is found in John 2, 1 through 11. On the third day, a wedding took place at Cana in Galilee. Jesus' mother was there, and Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. When the wine was gone, Jesus' mother said to him, "They have no more wine." "Woman, why do you involve me?" Jesus replied. "My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." Nearby stood 6 stone water jars, the kind used by the Jews for ceremonial washing, each holding from 20 to 30 gallons of water. Jesus said to the servants, "Fill the jars with water." So they filled them to the brim. Then he told them, "Now draw some out and take it to the master of the banquet." They did so, and the master of the banquet tasted the water that had been turned into wine. He did not realize where it had come from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew. Then he called the bridegroom aside and said, "Everyone brings out the choice wine first, and then the cheaper wine after the guests have had too much to drink. But you have saved the best till now." What Jesus did here in Cana of Galilee was the first of the signs through which he revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. As Christians, and as Wesleyans, we don't believe in drinking because 99.9% of the people that drink do so to feel different, to forget about their problems. And once you start to feel a buzz, that makes you feel differently than you usually do. Then you have effectively become drunk. And the Bible specifically tells us that becoming drunk is a sin. It says in Ephesians 5:18, "Do not get drunk on wine, which leads to debauchery. Instead, be filled with the Spirit." So to be blunt about it, being drunk is a sin. So the question here is, why did Jesus turn water into wine? Well, in Jesus' time, in the ancient Middle East, wedding celebrations lasted for days. To run out of wine would bring embarrassment that might last a lifetime for the bride and groom. The miracle of the wedding feast was the first of many signs that Jesus would perform. Now, when Jesus' mother told him they had run out of wine, he said his hour had not yet come. An easy way to understand what Jesus was thinking and is to see how the word hour is used later in the Gospel of John, where on the night before his trial and crucifixion, Jesus prayed, "Father, the hour has come. Glorify your Son, that your Son also may glorify you." Jesus had a sense of mission and a timetable. He knew that he was destined to die on the cross for our sins. God would glorify him by raising him from the dead as a victor over death. Jesus carefully unfolded his ministry so that he had time to train his disciples and to carry on his mission of preaching the good news to the entire world. No one except Jesus' mother, the disciples, and the servants who filled the stone pots with water knew the origin of the wine. The master of the feast who tasted the wine, asked the groom why he didn't serve the best wine first. The result of this miracle is stated in the last sentence, where it says his disciples believed in him. There were times in Jesus' ministry where he performed spectacular miracles in the open for everyone to see. In the last days of his ministry, Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead in a town close to Jerusalem. It's as though he was daring the religious authorities to arrest him. The wedding feast was at the beginning of his ministry, and it was not the time or the place to call attention to himself in front of a large crowd. Some people have accused Jesus of being disrespectful by calling his mother woman here instead of mother. When Jesus hung on the cross, he looked down and saw his mother standing by the Apostle John. He said, "Woman, behold your son." And in the next breath, he said to John, "Behold your mother." From that day forward, John took Mary into his house and cared for her. How could Jesus not respect his mother when he showed compassion by making provision for her? Some things don't translate well from one language to another. In the Jewish culture of Jesus' day, calling your mother woman was not a sign of disrespect. Some people equate spirituality with being a recluse and living off birdseed. The fact that Jesus accepted the wedding party invitation and turned the water into wine proves otherwise. Some people with a tendency towards sobriety have tried to make the case that this was grape juice instead of wine. It doesn't work. The original Greek text for the New Testament uses the word for wine. This text shouldn't give anyone an excuse for getting drunk, though. Jesus performed this miracle to save others, to provide for others. It would have caused the wedding host much pain to have run out of wine. So Jesus simply helped by performing a miracle, his first miracle. Now I want to talk to you about a few more that Jesus performed. In Mark 1:40-45, Jesus heals a man with leprosy. A man with leprosy came to him and begged him on his knees, "If you are willing, you can make me clean." Jesus was indignant. He reached out his hand and touched the man. "I am willing," he said. "Be clean." Immediately, the leprosy left him and he was cleansed. Jesus sent him away at once with a strong warning. "See that you don't tell anyone of this, but go and show yourself to the priests and offer the sacrifices that Moses commanded for your cleansing as a testimony to them." Instead, he went out and began to talk freely, spreading the news. As a result, Jesus could no longer enter a town openly, but stayed out in lonely places. Yet the people still came to him from everywhere. Reverend Van Sice talked a little bit about leprosy this morning, and I'm going to touch on it here too. Leprosy is a very, very dangerous disease. It was much more prominent in the days of Jesus than it is today, although it does still exist. Disease is our constant reminder of just how much things have changed since God pronounced a curse on the earth. At first, everything was very good, but Adam and Eve's sin brought death, pain, and decay into the world. One of the most well-known examples of debilitating disease in the sin-cursed creation is leprosy. Leprosy is discussed quite often in the Bible. While its definition in modern times is different from biblical times, there is no doubt that the definitions overlap, and the modern form of the disease still illustrates the important spiritual lessons of today. The term leprosy, including leper, lepers, and leprosy, occurs 68 times in the Bible, 55 times in the Old Testament, and 13 times in the New Testament. In the Old Testament, the incidence of leprosy most likely meant a variety of infectious skin diseases, and even mold and mildew on clothing and walls. The precise meaning of leprosy in both the Old Testament and New Testament is still in dispute, but it probably includes the modern Hansen's disease, especially in the New Testament, and infectious skin diseases. Leprosy has terrified humanity since ancient times and was reported as early as 600 BC in India, China, and Egypt. Leprosy is still a major health problem in many parts of Africa, Asia, and Latin America. For many centuries, leprosy was considered a curse from God, often associated with sin. It did not kill, but neither did it seem to end. Instead, it lingered for years, causing the tissues to degenerate and deform the body. Leprosy is spread by multiple skin contacts and or transferring saliva. Its symptoms start in the skin and peripheral nervous systems, outside the brain and the spinal cord, then spread to other parts, such as the hands, feet, face, and earlobes. Patients with leprosy experience disfigurement of the skin and bones, twisting of the limbs, and curling of the fingers to form the characteristic claw hand. Facial changes include thickening of the outer ear and collapsing of the nose. Tumor-like growths may form on the skin and in the respiratory tract. The optic nerve may deteriorate. The largest number of deformities develop from loss of pain sensation due to the extensive nerve damage. For instance, an inattentive patient can pick up a cup of boiling water without even flinching. The leprosy bacteria destroys nerves and its nerve endings that carry pain signals. Therefore, patients with advanced leprosy experience a total loss of physical pain. When these people cannot sense, touch, or pain, they tend to injure themselves or be unaware of injury caused by an outside agent. I give you this information about leprosy because I want you to understand Jesus' healing power. We call God the great physician because he can heal all of our earthly, physical, and mental issues, just like Jesus healed this man with this terrible disease. Jesus did not want this man to tell people what happened, but to just show them that he was healed. But the man told anyway. And this is when people begin to follow Christ and follow him everywhere. This leads us to another miracle, the miracle of feeding the 5,000. It is found in Mark 6:30 through 44. The apostles gathered around Jesus and reported to him all they had done and taught. Then, because so many people were coming and going that they did not even have a chance to eat, he said to them, "Come with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest." So they went away by themselves in a boat to a solitary place. But many who saw them leaving recognized them and ran on foot from all the towns and got there ahead of them. When Jesus landed and saw a large crowd, he had compassion on them because they were like sheep without a shepherd. So he began teaching them many things. By this time it was late in the day, so his disciples came to him. "This is a remote place," they said. "It's already very late. Send the people away so they can go to the surrounding countryside and villages and buy themselves something to eat." But he answered, "You give them something to eat." They said to him, "That would take more than half a year's wages. Are we to go and spend that much on bread and give it to them?" "How many loaves do you have?" he said. "Go and see." When they found out, they said, 5 loaves and 2 fish. Then Jesus directed them to have all the people sit down in groups on the green grass. So they sat down in groups of hundreds and 50s. Taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish and looking up to heaven, he gave thanks and broke the loaves. Then he gave them to his disciples to distribute to the people. He also 2 fish among them. They all ate and were satisfied. And the disciples picked up 12 baskets full of broken pieces of bread and fish. The number of men who had eaten was 5,000. Now Jesus' 12 disciples had just returned from a missionary journey he had sent them on. Something like we send our missionaries on now from, say you send them from Indiana to Canada. He didn't send them too far away that they couldn't come back within a couple of days. So after the disciples told Jesus all they had done and taught, he took them with him on a boat on the Sea of Galilee to a remote place for rest and prayer. Great crowds of people in the area heard that Jesus was near. So they ran to see him, bringing their sick friends and their relatives. When the boat landed, Jesus saw all the men, the women, and the children, and had compassion in his heart for them. Have you ever felt compassion for another person that you didn't know? When you see someone on the street or in a store that you know has less than you, someone who is paralyzed or blind, and your heart aches for them. This is how Jesus felt when he saw these people, because he knew they needed him. So he taught them about the kingdom of God and healed all those who were sick. Looking at the crowd, which numbered about 5,000 men, which isn't counting their wives and children, and any single women in the crowd, when added up, and the end number probably comes closer to between 10 and 20,000. Jesus asked his disciple Philip, "Where shall we buy bread for all these people?" Jesus knew what he was going to do, but he asked Philip just to test him. Philip replied that even 8 months' wages would not be enough to give each person one bite of bread. Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, had more faith in Jesus. He brought forward a young boy who had 5 small loaves of barley bread and 2 small fish. Even so, Andrew still wondered how that could help. Jesus ordered the crowd to sit down in groups of 50. He took the 5 loaves and looked up to heaven. He gave thanks to God his Father and passed them down to his disciples to be distributed. He did the same with the 2 fish. Every man, woman, and child ate as much as they wanted. Jesus miraculously multiplied 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, so there was more than enough for 20,000 people. Then he told his disciples to gather the leftovers, so nothing was wasted. They collected enough to fill 12 baskets. The crowd was so overwhelmed by this miracle that they understood Jesus was the prophet they had been promised. I tell you the story of this miracle because I want you to understand that nothing is too big to accomplish with God, because everything for him is easy. The disciples and all the people did not know where or what they would have for dinner. They didn't have a McDonald's to go down the street and get something off the dollar menu. So Jesus simply supplied what they needed. And when we follow Christ and our hearts are in the right place, he will always supply what we need. Now Jesus knew they would want to force him to become their king. So he fled from them, and this leads us to our 4th miracle, which is when Jesus walked on water. Mark 6:45 through 52 tells us the story. Immediately, Jesus made his disciples get into the boat and go ahead of him to Bethsaida, while he dismissed the crowd. After leaving them, he went up on a mountainside to pray. Later that night, the boat was in the middle of a lake, and he was alone on the land. He saw the disciples straining at the oars because of the wind. It was so strong. Shortly before dawn, he went out to them, walking on the lake. He was about to pass them by. But when they saw him walking on the lake, they thought he was a ghost. They cried out because they all saw him and were terrified. Immediately he spoke to them. "Take courage. It is I. Do not be afraid." Then he climbed into the boat with them, and the wind died down. They were completely amazed, for they had not understood about the loaves. Their hearts were hardened. This was directly after feeding all the people. Jesus had sent his disciples ahead of him on a boat to cross the Sea of Galilee. At this point, Jesus knew his disciples did not fully understand who he was. He knew they didn't fully believe yet either. So several hours later, in the night, the disciples encounter a storm. Jesus comes to them, walking on the water. He knew this would terrify the disciples, because I think it would terrify all of us if we were on a boat in the middle of a lake and we saw someone walking on top of the water towards us. I think we too would think we are seeing a ghost, just as the disciples did. Jesus tells them in verse 27, "Take courage, it is I. Do not be afraid." So we've looked at tonight our 4 separate miracles of Christ. First, we saw him turn water into wine out of compassion for the bride and groom. Second, he healed a man with a debilitating disease, and the man went and told everyone, even though Jesus told him not to. So now everyone knows the power of Jesus. So they are constantly following him around like groupies follow around music artists and athletes today. It's not a bad thing that people wanted and did follow him. We are meant to follow him like that. The third miracle was feeding the 5,000 men. Now, looking at all the facts, he most likely fed between 10 and 20,000 people with only 5 loaves of bread and 2 pieces of fish. They never ran out and had enough to fill 12 baskets full of leftovers. And the masses believed in Jesus and who he is after this miracle. But the disciples still had their wonderings about everything. So in the 4th and final miracle, Jesus decided to teach them this lesson and sent them on their way and brought on a storm so they wouldn't get too far. He walks out to them on the water and speaks to them in only, I would assume, a loud voice. "Take courage. It is I. Do not be afraid." There's an old story about a man who's walking along a beach upon which thousands of starfish have been washed up on. Left on the sand by the receding tide, the starfish were certain to die as the sun dried them out. The man also saw a boy picking them up and flinging them back into the sea. Planning to teach the boy a little lesson in common sense, the man walked up to the boy and said, "I've been watching what you were doing, son. You have a good heart, and I know you mean well, but do you realize how many beaches there are around here and how many starfish are dying on every beach every day? Surely such an industrious and kind-hearted boy, such as yourself, can find something better to do with your time. Do you really think what you were doing is making a difference?" The boy looked up at the man, then looked back down, picked up a starfish at his feet, and gently tossed it back into the ocean. Looked at the man and said, "It made a difference to that one." I want you to walk out of here tonight knowing these things. The first miracle taught us that Jesus wants us to prosper. And when bad things happen to us, it's not his fault. We cannot blame him for our shame, but he wants to help us and will in any way. Second, if we have faith in him, he will heal us if he sees fit. My personal favorite scripture is Jeremiah 29:11. "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future." Jesus wants us to be healthy and spread his word. If we believe, he can and will heal us on his time. It may not be immediately, but he will heal us. Number 3 is that Jesus will fill us. He will feed us and provide a way for us to grow. him and not to believe what Satan tells us. That is why he says, take courage, it is I, do not be afraid. So that is exactly what he wants us to do. Take courage and not be afraid. So what we learned about Jesus is that he is the ultimate miracle worker, and that Jesus not only performed miracles when he walked on the earth during Bible days, but he still performs them today in 2017. So when you feel you are in need of a miracle, call unto him, and remember what he said. Take courage, it is I, do not be afraid. Bow our heads. Dear Jesus, we ask that you be with us as we leave your house tonight. We know that your Spirit is always with us. We ask that you will continue to take care of us and provide. And we ask that you will help us take courage and not be afraid of the obstacles of life. We know Satan will throw everything he can at us, but we know that with your shield, we can do everything. And we can take on the full armor of God, and then we can march through everything this life has to throw at us with you. We ask that you will continue to be with us. In your name we pray.